Ismail Abdul-Salam, BeatsBoxingMayhem.com, here with legendary top-rank promoter Bob Arum. We just had a great weigh-in for Shakur Stevenson and Jamel Herring taking place tomorrow here at State Farm Arena. It seems like the word has gotten out. Have you been surprised as far as like the turnout now? Because it seems like we're getting a late surge with ticket sales and people with getting interest in the fight.
This is Atlanta, Georgia, one of the great cities in the United States, a great sports town, and we always knew that the turnout would be very big for this fight because the fan base here in Atlanta is really something special.
Now I see Bud Crawford is here. We know he has that big fight coming up in November against Sean Porter. Something kind of interests me. I'm wondering, when it comes to re-signing him, do you think it would be more difficult if he beats Porter like dominantly, because then PBC might try and snatch him up?
Well, I think this indicates to everybody that Al Heyman and PBC are willing to test Crawford. They have a whole lot of good welterweights to put in with Terrence. So I think this is the start of something interesting. In our humble opinion, the top rank, we believe that Crawford is the best welterweight in the world. And I think he'll be able to prove it in the years ahead.
Now, you came out on the right side of history with Tyson Fury being able to put away Deontay Wilder. Now, remember, you went viral during that whole build-up, the things that happened with the weigh-in, then also with Coppinger. You did apologize to Kate about the incident. You realized it wasn't her fault. Do you have any regrets about what happened with Coppinger, or do you feel it was warranted, that situation?
Coppinger was totally warranted.
Okay.
I mean, he's a guy, I'm talking to his fellow reporters, and suddenly he's bellowing behind me that I should have paid Terrence Crawford more money. You know, that's not... What he should have done was come and ask a question. Why didn't you? Not you didn't, like it was like I did something wrong. That's what I got upset about. You know, these guys, the problem is, and I don't want to be like an old guy saying everything was better then, but, you know, writers and people who covered boxing were totally different years ago. They were much more professional than these people. So, yeah, it pissed me off. Maybe I shouldn't have used the language that I used, but that's me, man. I come from Brooklyn, New York, you know. So we guys from Brooklyn use a lot of bad language.
That was definitely old Brooklyn, I felt, when you addressed them. So my next question is, when you're looking at this build-up with how Jamel has handled it and how Shakur has handled it, do you feel that they're both in a good space, or do you feel one has the mental edge as far as how they've been handling the build-up down here?
Well, you know, I want to be frank about this. They're each in a good place for each of them. But you got to remember, Shakur is a young man, almost like a little bit advanced over being a boy, you know, a young kid. Jamal is a man, served in the Marines, saw a lot of terrible things in Iraq, and, you know, has clawed his way in boxing. So he's in a different place than Shakur. And that's going to be interesting because you really have a fight between a tremendously talented young man in Shakur and a guy who's been through the worst part of life, you know, serving in a war zone, like Jamal, who is obviously not afraid of anything. That's why it's going to be such a spectacular fight. And that's why, while, you know, I think it's fair that Shakur is a favorite in the fight, the odds are so overwhelming for Shakur that it's really like an overlay.
Right. So one thing I've also noticed, you know, we like to play matchmaker on the reporting side. So we know Navarrete had that great fight last week against Joet Gonzalez. He emerged victorious. We know that Oscar Valdez is kind of waiting in the wings, potentially as an opponent for the winner of this fight between Shakur and Jamel. Has there been any talk in Top Rank about Navarrete possibly moving up and fighting Valdez? Because on paper, that looks like a fight of the year matchup.
When that fight was over, it was last Friday in San Diego. All of the Navarrete and all of his people at ringside said the next fight they want was Valdez.
Wow.
So obviously the answer is yes. He wants to move up. I talked with Valdez's manager, Frank Espinoza, who likes that fight. Now, again, after this fight with Shakur and Jamal, we'll sit down with everybody. We're in a fortunate position to promote all of them,
right,
and figure out which way we're going to go.
Gotcha. Okay, so my last question, I'm going to go back in time. I'm actually working on a story about Floyd Mayweather and why the fight with Antonio Margarito never happened. So I know that you have Floyd, you proposed the fight to him. I just wanted to get it from your perspective. How close was that fight ever to happening? Was there ever an offer on the table for it?
Yeah, there was an offer on the table, but Floyd indicated that he didn't want to fight Margarito. For whatever reason, they're professional fighters. Floyd was afraid of no one, so it wasn't that he was afraid,
right,
but he thought that Margarito's style, I believe, would give him trouble. Margarito was a much bigger person than his weight division. So
right,
big welterweight, or junior middleweight. And so Floyd was never anxious to fight him.
And was
now,
it true
that doesn't mean that Floyd wouldn't have beat him,
right,
but I'm telling you that was the truth.
And that was the $8 million offer that was on the table. Is that correct? Okay.
But one thing you can't fault is Floyd about business.
Absolutely.
Because somehow he found a way to make oodles and oodles of money. So, the $8 million was a lot, but in retrospect, given Floyd's career, it was very little.
Very true. Very true. All right, Bob, I thank you for your time. And when can we see Tyson Fury again? Because Dillian White pulled out of his fight.
I saw Tyson on Twitter wishing Deontay Wilder a happy birthday, which was cute. I tried to get Tyson after I saw that, but he's in Manchester, but he didn't answer the phone. So I really got to, I don't do the fighting.
Right.
I put the fights on. So I got to see what's in Tyson's head and when he wants to come back. Right now, I know enough, for example, with my Hispanic fighters, don't book them in January or maybe even February because they're still celebrating Christmas and New Year's.
Right.
There you go. So, he has 6 kids, Tyson does, and, he'll probably want to spend the Christmas and New Year's holiday with his family, and I would think he'll probably be ready to come back in March or April. And a lot of guys that he can fight. Dylan White is a possibility. Joe Joyce. So we'll see.
Good matchups.
Yeah.
And how about with Tio after he finally gets this mandatory out of the way? You got plans for him for 2022?
Well, he wants to fight Josh Taylor. And Josh had a fight December 18th, but he hurt his knee. So that's going to be February 26th. So I'll give Teofimo a fight at 140 against somebody else in February. And then hopefully in the spring we'll be able to match Josh Taylor and Teofimo.
Perfect. Well, Bob, I thank you for your time. I look forward to seeing you on Saturday night.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Thank you.